Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. I have one of the most exceptional guests with me right now. In fact, I was sitting here eating some Sour Patch Kids, true story, and, just kind of preparing for this, between podcast episodes. And we're talking off air, and the question comes up, wait, I don't even know. How do I say your name? Do you go by EA? How do we even say that? And so, you know what? This is going to be the single time that I invite my guest to I need an introduction. We have not formally met. We were introduced through a good friend of mine, Lindsay Sutherland, who has a fantastic podcast, and go check that out. But she raved about you, and I'm like, I have to have you on the show, but I don't even know how to say your name.
Well, until I was 12 years old, I thought my name was Go Chop Wood. And then when
that's what my son feels.
Yeah, and then when I became a pilot, I became a commercial pilot later on to fly my own planes. But when I first was getting my private license, I thought my instructor thought my name was "Where the hell you going?" Because that's all he ever said to me was "Where the hell you going?" So it's been a rough existence, trying to figure out. But the last name throws everyone for a loop. It's Austrian, so sort of think Schwarzenegger, 15 consonants, one vowel kind of thing.
Right. I was looking for the vowels. I'm like, what is going on? These are not even consonants that are typically put together.
Yep. And the key is forget about the C. The C, pretend like the C's not there, and then it becomes a lot easier. So it's pronounced Csolkovits. And EA is my first.
No, I wasn't even gonna get Csolkovits out of that. Yeah, even with your guidance here.
Well, a lot of times when people say my last name, other people around them say "bless you" because they thought maybe they sneezed or something. Csolkovits, so
right, exactly. Oh my gosh! So okay, but explain EA.
It's my first and middle initial. And so over the years, because of the Whopper last name, everyone just started calling me EA. And I just sort of settled in on it. So it's my first and middle initial. And so EA, and it's different, and sort of, people remember that a little bit more, and certainly more than the last name. It's EA, what was that last name? And that's usually how it works.
Right. And this is really fascinating. It's no surprise. It should not be a surprise that you are, the founder of Givers University, which is a brand that is abundantly more than just one single facet. And we'll get into that. But think about this. You were already giving. You were already giving and being gracious to people, even with your name along the way. Well, it's easier for them. It's more comfortable for them. I'll fine. Call me EA. It makes makes it easier for you.
Well, I guess that is interesting. Thank you for that observation. My favorite part is when people correct me on it, and they say, no, that's not how you say it. And I say, wait, that is how you say it. It's my name. I know how to say it. And they go, no, that can't be. And I say, because they're working with the C and the S. And another interesting mental, because we'll be talking about mindset and stuff, how minds work is so interesting. If someone asks my last name, and if I say it first, if I think they're going to write it down, if I say it first, they will absolutely misspell it every time, no matter what I say. In other words, if I say my name's Csolkovits, it's spelled CS. What do you think they do? SC every time.
Oh,
every time SC, and they always end it with a Z, and it ends with an S.
You know what?
And it's the funniest thing.
We gotta high five their teacher. Right?
Oh, yeah,
their teacher taught them S before, SC makes.
Exactly. So it's the funniest thing. So I've learned over the years, if I see they're going to write it down, I say, it starts with a C, and I wait till they complete the C. And then I say SOL. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's great. I mean, enjoy it. And it certainly is unique to say the least.
Well, I'm really, really excited to have you on the show. In fact, it was like one of those things that anticipation, just hearing what a fantastic guest you are and everything, and then to have your wonderful energy here. But, here's the thing. Is that you have accomplished a tremendous amount. And I was, I do my little research on people before I have them on my show and everything. And I was just amazed. I'm like, wow, I'm kind of having this really cool, amazing person who's very accomplished. I mean, when you're a millionaire by 23, that gets a lot of people's attention. Like, oh, wait, what? And if you don't mind me saying, this is different than right now, 2021, the 24-year-old millionaire. There's a generational difference here. And so for me, that made me even think even more of like, oh my gosh, what an accomplishment. Not because it's a monetary accomplishment necessarily, but it represents so much more, because $1 million, when you became $1 million, we've had inflation. Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I guess, again, I was very blessed. All of the credit goes to my mentor, who I look forward to being able to share with you how we met and what happened there, because I'm a huge advocate for mentoring and people like
Appreciate.
yourself that provide, really valuable consulting services for people in parts of their life. And I'm an advocate for that. And if they don't have that, in my world, we call that naive. I mean, that's just that simple. You're asking for trouble. So,
Naive is a very gracious way. Can I say?
yeah,
Like, there are other words for that. Everyone can
for sure,
fill in
for
the
sure.
bubble.
Yes, yes, yes.
You're
And
very gracious.
so I was very fortunate, and really the first year that I earned $1 million in 1 year. I mean, literally not business money. I mean, after on personal salary, after I paid taxes, I had $1 million in my pocket that year, and that was in 1989, which had to be probably 2 or 3 million today, I suppose. I was 33.
I would.
I was 33 then. I'm 65 now. So, a lot of successes and blessings since then, as money came out and went in and came out of my life and back in huge sums. Incredible. And all of this really comes back to. And I could submit to you, it's easier to earn $1 million today than ever before in history. No question about it. Hands down, hands down. Can I share with you how I first learned about earning a huge amount of money, and how I originally met my mentor? Because it really is, I enjoy sharing the story because it raises some eyebrows and lets you know how life, when we're thinking the right kinds of thoughts, we can be guided down paths that are so unexpected to us.
I'll tell you what, thinking the thoughts. I just put a post out on social platforms today about, are you asking yourself the right question? Because the questions that we ask are, they're swirling around in our subconscious mind, and that's going to come out in what are we thinking about? What are we looking for? And so I love that. Absolutely. Only if you promise to tell me, because we have challenges that come up in life. And so if you want to start there, yes, but we have to hear about some of the challenges along the way.
Oh, happy to do so, for sure, for sure. I like your point that you just mentioned. And one of the things my business mentor shared with me, he said, people always want the answers. And he said, and they live backwards. He said, the answers are omnipresent. They're always around us. They always have been. They always will be. He said, we need to focus on asking the right questions, because if we ask the right question to the wrong person, we'll get the wrong answer. Ask the wrong question to the right person, we'll get the wrong answer. We need to ask the right question and then ask that to the right people. And then we will find that all of those answers, 100% of the time, were always there to begin with. And that point is a very germane point to how I even met my business mentor, because of what you just said. So
fantastic. Let's hear this.
All right, so going all the way back, and I live in Michigan now, but I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area. Lived a big part of my life in the Oak Brook area, suburb of Chicago. Chicago's got a lot of suburbs, and and I grew up in that time. And my father was a milkman, and back then, they delivered milk to the house, and they had a box outside the house. And the amazing thing, Julie, is that outside all of these houses was the milkman box, and there was always money in the box, and not one time did anyone ever touch the money. So different than today, right? I mean, really different times. And but I mean, it was just, and I was 5 years old, and my father had his own route for Twin Oaks Dairy, and one-man operation. And he used to say something to me that sort of stuck with me through the years, and it did have a beginning impact on me. He'd get up at 3 in the morning, delivered the milk all by himself. So he went to the big semis, and then he'd go and chop up the ice and put it in the truck, because the smaller trucks weren't refrigerated. Only the big 18-wheelers were back then. So he had to chop up these huge 6-foot blocks of ice and chop them all up and put them all over in the milk inside for the day while he was delivering, right? So this was a regular thing every morning. And I worked with him quite a bit.
Hey, can we interject that now people high five themselves if they wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning just to start their morning ritual and routine? So like,
Yeah.
But here's your dad. Hey, I'm working. I'm doing this.
And then it's an important thing to note that when he did this, he did it by himself, and I recognized he didn't have someone over his shoulder saying, hey, you got to punch in at such and such time. You have to be there. Got to get your butt out of bed. I mean, he really did it. So I did get a glance of the importance of being a self-starter. And if you want something done, you got to get to it. And my father used to say something to me, and he said this saying over and over again, just about every time I was with him. He said, well, when we're done, we're done. And his point was, the sooner we get it done and over with, then we can do all the other things we want. And I enjoyed that time. I have many fond memories, excluding the glass bottles, that emptied their contents on my feet when I broke them. But which was, I think they brought out the plastic bottles because of me. Anyway, so here I was. So at the ripe old age of 16, I decided to take my first big step, Julie, in becoming a success, and I became a janitor. Now, I didn't mind being a janitor because business was always picking up. What? Anyway, so here I was, ripe old age of 16.
It took me a second. Thanks for that pause. Was that an SC or C?
Yeah, exactly. Well, see, and I have no problem. I have to let people know I just might have said something funny, because a lot of times it's not. So, I always laugh first, and that lets them know, okay, good time to laugh. Okay. So at 16 years old, here I am as a janitor, and I had 2 profound events in my teen years, from 16 on for a couple of years, that had a big impact on me. One of them was I was able to be bonded, means insured, so that if my buffer, it's janitorial service, if my buffer hit some big piece of equipment, the insurance company would pay for it, right? So that also allowed me to be in really expensive places, expensive businesses, and expensive homes. Every single Wednesday, I cleaned a home of a lady, and when I say her name, it won't mean a lot to your listeners or anything until I make the movie reference. Her name is June Martino, and I was in her $1 million home every single Wednesday. She had a full-time maid and butler, and June Martino owned the 3rd most controlling stock in McDonald's. Now, I lived in the Oak Brook area, which is where the world headquarters of McDonald's was for decades. It's since moved, but for decades and decades, it was in Oak Brook, Illinois, suburb of Chicago. So, and I lived there, right? And everyone knew who June Martino was. Now, if you're wondering who she is, if any of your listeners have seen the movie called The Founder, Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, and it's all about McDonald's. If you haven't seen it, it actually is a pretty good view. It was out a couple years ago. It's still on streaming. Probably will be for a long time, because, it's actually a pretty good movie. I will say this. There's a lot of Hollywood spin, a lot of drama, that really didn't happen that way. And Ray Kroc wasn't that way. That's Hollywood spin, and, to add some drama to the movie. I live these events. I can share with you personally. In fact, the very first McDonald's, the very first one was in Des Plaines, Illinois. And at the end of our milk route every day when I was a kid, we drove by that McDonald's every single day. So this was a phenomenon. So here I am in this lady's house. And Julie, for some reason, I don't know why, I had this thought that if you were rich and successful, you had to be a jerk. You had to be me too oriented, or you had to be me only oriented. You had to be able to push people down. You had to be mean and a little bit of arrogant, and all of these things I'm thinking of, and I have to share with you, as I met June Martino, because I saw her every Wednesday, she was so the opposite. It was shocking to me, and I kept watching her because I kept thinking, what's the deal here? She doesn't have a superpower. She's not like an alien. I mean, and I'm in this $1 million house. I'm there to buffer floors and clean the swimming pool, and cleaning the garage. Loved it, because in order to clean the garage, I had to pull out a Rolls Royce.
Oh,
which was
that's
worth 10
bummer.
lifetimes of my income, at the time. Because when I went home at night, during the day I pull out her Rolls Royce. At night I go home and drive my Rolls can hardly, which is basically rolls down one hill and can hardly make it up the next. That's a Rolls can hardly. So I had one of those. So here I am at night, and I'm astonished by this woman. I mean, I thought, man, she's so approachable. If I'm buffing the floor and looking down and she walks through, she says hi. And I think I'm not able to count on my fingers and toes how many zeros she's worth. What's the deal? I mean, I was just astonished being there, thinking someone lives like this and they can be happy too. They're not a jerk. And I was wrong. I was so flat wrong. So one day, she was in an extra good mood. I thought, man, this is my chance. So I got up all the courage that a snot-nosed 16-year-old can get up. I'm shaking in my janitorial boots because I'm going to go up and ask June Martino, the icon, a question. So I went up to her and I said, hi, June. Again, amazingly approachable. Oh, hi, how are you? I mean, she knew who I was. She always saw me every week. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. And I said, well, could you tell me about it? And she said, well, what's that? And I said, well, the whole McDonald's thing. I'm not kidding, Julie. She put her arm around me, brought me in the kitchen, and I asked her in the morning the entire day, told me the entire story from where she worked for Ray Kroc when he was a milkshake mixer salesman before he met the brothers, all the way through up to the moment we're sitting in the kitchen. This is all day. She has the maids and butlers bringing us food so she can keep telling me the story in the kitchen. And I'm thinking, man, this is crazy. I'm this 16-year-old kid, and this icon is sitting here telling me all of this, and it was the whole thing was just mind-blowing to me. And she said one part, it's actually referenced in the movie. It didn't happen the way it shows in the movie, but the event did occur. And the movie is really based on events, but how they're portrayed is Hollywood spin. And
Yes.
the event is, there was a time where they were out of money. McDonald's was out of money. Ray was out of money. There's no money left. So she kept the books and she went to Ray and said, we don't have any money left. And so they made an agreement that he would continue working for her for no money. There wasn't any money, but she'd keep working. And he would give her worth less than zero company stock, and he would take some of the phone calls from bill collectors if they called her, right? In the movie, it just shows she goes to him, says, I need more money, and that perpetuates him calling the brothers, and they have an argument on the phone. Totally different scenario. But the event is true. So I asked her, I said, June, I'm a janitor. I work Friday to Friday. I'm paycheck to paycheck. If I don't get paid on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday. I need my paycheck. Why did you do it? Julie, I'm not kidding. She sat back in her chair, stared at me, and did this eye lock. And I just realized I asked her a question no one had ever asked her. Everyone wanted to know what happened with McDonald's, but no one ever wanted to know why. And and all I did was ask her, why'd you do that? Why'd you work for nothing? Because I wouldn't do that, right?
You asked a good question to the right person.
About 15 seconds went by. It seemed like a half hour because she's staring at me, and I know she's not home. She's staring right at me, and I'm gonna go do 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 do. I'm thinking, what am I doing here?
What did I just do?
Yeah, I know. But I could tell she truly was thinking, why did she do it? It was a thought-provoking question inadvertently. So she answered, and when she answered, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I remember what she said, the way she said it, and my instantaneous thought after. When I said, June, why'd you do it? Why'd you work for nothing? No money. She replied and said to me, because I believed in Ray. And my first thought was, that's it. I need to find me a Ray Kroc. That's the answer. It didn't work out too bad for her. I mean, he took her under her wing and he showed her everything. And I'm cleaning his $1 million home back when I was 16 years old. And I'm 65 years young now. So that was a long time ago, right? So here I am thinking, that's it. I need to find a Ray Kroc. I know I want to make it. I don't even know the questions I should be asking. I don't know the answers. I didn't even know what a mentor was. I didn't even know what that word was. I'd already spent all my hooked on phonics money on something else. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't phonics. So I didn't even know what a mentor was, but I knew I needed a Ray Kroc. So Julie, I just threw it out there. I just threw that question out there, and I said, where's my Ray Kroc? Where would I find him? And it wasn't about 3 months later, janitorial service again. Phone rings. The owner Come on in. As the owner, as the owner, yeah, this is gonna be good stuff. Come on in, you're gonna love this. So the owner comes in. I should say the owner picks up the phone, talks for a few minutes, hangs up the phone, and a couple of minutes go by, and he says, "Well, some guy's in from Detroit, and he wants to see some jewel. He wants to see he's opening a jewelry store. Wants to see some carpeting, and he's leaving tomorrow on a plane." And I said, "Okay, so what's that got to do with me?" He goes, "I need you to go." And I said, "Jerry," owner of the business, I said, "Jerry, I'm not going. I already punched out. I've been cleaning all day. I'm exhausted. I'm fatigued. I'm not going to go. I mean, it's after dinner time. I've already punched out." He says, "No, man, I need you to go. I have to stay at the office." I said, "Jerry, I'm not going." He said, "I'll tell you what. If you go, I'll give you your choice of any Saturday off you want." Now, for a janitor, that's a huge negotiation chip because we're cleaning while businesses are closed. So Saturday, while all businesses are closed, we're working morning till night cleaning, right? So I said, I wanted to make sure he wasn't tricking me. I said, "Any Saturday I want off?" And he sighed and he said, "Yeah, any Saturday." I said, "Okay, Jerry." So I open up the hatchback of my Rolls Canardly and throw the carpet samples in the back. And I go, now setting the stage for your listeners. I don't want to go. I'm physically, mentally fatigued. I've already told my boss 3 times I don't want to go, and now I'm going. I'm getting ready to do something I've never done before because I've never done a carpet estimate job. I don't even know how to measure it. He just said call him on the phone and he'd give me the quote. So I'm doing something I've never done before. I don't know how to do it. And it's late at night. And I'm going to meet a guy from Detroit. Seriously? Who wants to meet him from Detroit, right? So
yeah, Chicagoland person in Detroit.
Exactly. You couldn't compare the two, especially back then, right? So all these no's going through my head. Little do I know, I'm getting to meet my Ray Kroc, my mentor, the man who will become the father I never had, even though I had a father. And I became the son he never had, even though I had a son. This is the man, the Ray Kroc, and I've already done everything possible not to go. So I go and I meet this guy. And Julie, have you ever had the circumstance when you met someone, and when you first met him, you were so, it was inexplicable. You were so comfortable with them that you felt like maybe you already knew them before. I mean, it was just, the comfort level was so high, right?
Yep.
It was that kind of meeting. So we're talking about everything for 2 hours. The carpet didn't, that was a no sale because we just had commercial grade for offices and he needed something plush for this diamond store. So after about 2 hours, I'm throwing the samples back in my Rolls Canardly and he offers me a job. And I said no. So I've said no 4 times, right? So I said no. I don't think about diamonds. He said, "Well, I'll teach you." And I said, "No, Sam, I don't know anything about diamonds." I said, "All I know about diamonds are 2 things. 1, they're expensive. And 2, someday a lady's going to ask me for one. That's all I know. I don't know anything about diamonds." He said, "No, yeah." He's like, "I could teach her." He said, no. So I'm walking out the door saying no now for the 5th time of this whole event. And he hooks me. I didn't know at that point I was genuinely speaking with a puritanical genius, not the IQ baloney genius. I call that IQ, because I've met a lot of educated idiots in my life, all the knowledge, all the book knowledge, spew it all at you, 0 implementation and execution skills, right? I call those educated idiots. They're all the knowledge, zero implementation, right? So I didn't realize that this guy was a human engineering 101 genius, like talk to you for 10 minutes and he's got you pegged totally 100% what makes you tick. So what he said when I was walking out the door, he knew would get me, and it did. He said, and I remember his tone even now. He said, "What do you have to lose? You could always go back being a janitor." And I said, "No, I'm all set. People always make a mess and I can always pick it up. I have job security." So I left. Now it's almost midnight, by the way. I mean, this was all happening in one evening. So I'm halfway home and it's grinding on me. "Man, what do you mean by that?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I could always get a job somewhere else." I mean, what does he mean? You know what? I'm going to go find out exactly what he meant by that. And I'm actually sort of a little miffed at this point. And I figured, well, I'm going to go back. He probably already left because he's going back in the morning. He's still there. So he hires me. I start working for him. And then for the next 4 months, I got in the car at 4 in the morning every Friday night, Saturday morning. Drove 6 hours, which was exactly 301 miles at that point, from Chicago to Detroit. Met with him for 6 hours, then got back in the car and drove 6 hours back home every single weekend in one day for 4 months in a row and never missed a weekend because
Wow.
I knew he knew. He knew it. And I didn't even know what I didn't know, let alone what I knew. You know, I mean, I was just so far out. Son of a milkman, burnt out janitor who thinks his fun time is, getting free songs on a jukebox, cleaning bowling alleys at 2 a.m. That's my fun time, right? So this guy had it and I want it. I'm just like a sponge. So I'm a huge advocate for, number one, the importance of a mentor. And number two, the ability, and we live in this age where everyone's got to be so smart and they got to have their personal brand and they got to look so smart. And it's not about your brand, it's about your customer's brand. It always was about the customer's brand. It's not my brand, So everyone's got to be so smart and preeminent. And my only superpower, Julie, this is it. This is the only thing. I had the ability to dumb up. I had the ability to simply say, I don't know. I'd love to learn that. Could you please teach me? I'd love to learn more about that. That was the single superpower I had. I was dumb enough to listen to my mentor, and I say dumb enough in that I had to wear him down all the time because he had to feel like I was a machine gun with my questions. How about this? How about that? How about this? How about that? Just because I couldn't. And then when I drove all the way home for 6 hours, I thought about all of his answers and pondered those, right? For 4 months, it was great self-improvement. So I share with your listeners, I advocate for mentoring, and also be aware, be discerning of those so small, insignificant moments in life that are so thin, they're like on the edge of a dime, that will turn into something so spectacular in your life. Here I am saying no over 6 times to the very thing I had asked for. So at 19 years old, I popped the big question to Sam Robbins, my mentor. And I said, Sam, will you teach me everything? I mean, all of it. Don't hold back. I want to know all of it. And he said, okay, I will teach you. He said, but I want one thing from you. I want to let you know, Julie, whatever he said next, I'm in yes mode. Totally yes mode, right? So he said, this is what I want from you. When the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many people as possible everything I've taught you. So at 19 years old, Julie, I made a vow, I made an oath, and I made a commitment that today has manifested as Givers University. And I still believe he's looking over my shoulder helping me every day. And so I share with your listeners those stories only because it was the event with June Martino that opened my eyes that you didn't have to be a jerk to be successful, and you could be happy and prosperous and a giving person, right? And because of that, it opened my mind, and that caused me to throw that question out there, the right question, inadvertently by mistake. I didn't know I was doing it, I didn't know at that point that we have 18,250,000 separate conversations in our own mind with ourselves every single year. 18,250,000 separate conversations from ourselves to ourselves that no one ever hears. No one can tell me those conversations don't have impact on our life.
Completely. I love that that's what led to Givers University. I mean, what a powerful story to take us up to that point where you're, creating you've already created it. It's been around, and wow. I feel like I have to just pause and absorb for a moment because you're fantastic, storyteller, and it's even more exciting because it's, true, a real life story. Are you enjoying this episode? Do the world a favor and help trip the algorithm by leaving a review so that this content reaches many others. And now back to the show. Now, I have so many questions, but why don't we give an overview real fast?
Okay.
By we, I mean you. Okay.
I figured, yeah, I was with you.
Yeah, right. I'm just calling myself out. So, give us an overview of Givers University.
Great. We actually teach something, and I've been very blessed to do I guess, over 110 interviews now since April. And I'm getting ready to do a whole second round, by the way, of a whole new set of information. I'm super excited to get out there in the public because so many people need to hear this. But in these interviews, I have to share, everyone says the same thing. Man, no one's teaching this stuff. No one's teaching this specific information. And it's a skill set that can be learned. And here's basically what we teach. First of all, I say to your listeners, emphatically, we love everybody. I say it again. We love everybody. And we teach people how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. And from that, we teach as a skill how to discern in relationships, but not with broad, innocuous swaths of information where you say, wow, that sounded really good. And then you go, what do I do with that now? We use a very granular approach, identifying by virtually checklists. I mean, actual checklists to say, look for them doing these things. Look for these actual deeds. And from these deeds, you can begin to discern, should I pull this person closer into my life? Because givers bring with them the 3 W's of givers: wisdom, wealth, and wellness. Or should I begin respectfully distancing myself, respectfully, not rude or nasty, respectfully distancing myself because takers bring with them the 3 D's of takers, which is defeatism, disruption, and destruction. And when I bring them into my life, they're bringing that with them. Proof of that, I ask your listeners to think about the following. Think about the fires that you stomp out every day. Think about the times when your stress level goes through the roof. Think about the times you have a conversation, and at the end of the conversation, you don't even remember what the conversation was about, but you do know one thing: you have no energy left. They just took it all from you. All 3 of those things have one thing in common. They all have a name attached to them. And no one's teaching, how do we discern who should we bring in close? I know, Julie, I'm positive you're a self-improvement person. I'm a self-improvement geek. I love it. I love it. I love it, right? But no one's teaching, what about the other guy? What if he's not doing it right? What should I do about that? So what happens is, through not discerning, we bring these people into our life and we become collateral damage, and we're putting out fires instead of being productive.
This is completely true. And, I think that what you are doing with Givers U is, identifying the givers from the takers to jump the gun on that. And there are people that are tackling this in the self-improvement space. Unfortunately, they're not they're in attacking it. Very short. They're not approaching this. They're not engaging this in a gracious, productive way. So I've come across people where they'll say, well, if that person isn't serving you well, and not necessarily everything has to be self-serving, they're not coming across in that direction, but they'll say, like, just purge them from your life, just pluck them from your life. And already your tone, which those sound like, those are really severe words to be using, versus, I'm just going to respectfully distance myself from these people, from this person. Love it. Because it's necessary.
Well, and it was like an interview I had a few interviews back. This guy says, wow, this is great stuff. I love this. I just read this book that says I have to have 5 good people around me. I said, you're right, you should. Question for you. Which 5? And he went, and he's like staring at me. I said, do you see my point? I said, there's books out about, being a giver and an important thing. And I can share with you that so many of them are so broad and innocuous that after you're through, you get a good warm feeling from it. And I can get a warm feeling by taking a hot bath. I don't need to read a book that's saying that. So, if I want a warm feeling. So if it's important at a very granular approach, teach it as a skill. Discerning in relationships and how important that is. We've like, as an example, if right now, as I'm looking at you, if you look like your eyes were a little itchy and your nose was running, from those symptoms.
Boy, I'm like, I'm gonna run along now.
I hate when that happens. Yeah. I could discern by looking at the symptoms. You may have a cold, right? So I'm not able to see the cold. That's the cause, but I can see the symptoms. I can observe those. So supplant symptoms with deeds. And we teach genuine checklists. Look for them doing these things. these specific deeds. And that will help you in your discernment, because that's going to show you what the cold is. Look at the symptoms, look at the deeds, because those things will speak much louder than anything they ever try to convince you of. Watch and observe and become discerning. So we've determined about 20% of the population are givers. You put them in any situation, they're going to figure out how to start giving, contributing to it, investing to it. The first ones to say, hey, I can do that, I want to do that, can I get it? The first one to step forward. By contrast, on the other side of the Grand Canyon, about 20% of the population are takers. These people, when you put them in any situation, will craft or concoct a way to begin taking spiritually, mentally, morally, financially, emotionally, ad infinitum. They're wired that way. Now, wait a minute. You say, wait, it's 20% is givers, 20% is takers. There's 60% left. Those 60% in the middle, we refer to them as fencers. A fencer is someone who sits on the fence. They act like a giver when they're with givers. They act like a taker when they're with takers. They can be great relationships, but you need to manage them and you need to keep an eye on them, because they can jump back and forth on the fence. Ideally, we want to build that giver community around us with the right like-minded people. And it's an actual skill. So when we say the word giver, we're not labeling a person. We don't label people. We're labeling giver deeds. We're labeling their deeds. When we say taker, we're not labeling a person. We're labeling their deeds, taker deeds. And we teach people, discern in your relationships. If you want to be happy in your life, you know, we're in this world now, Julie, where businesses are open and closing faster than ever before. You see it in your business and your counseling all the time, I'm sure. Yeah. And we see products coming and going, antiquated overnight. What's left? Relationships. And no one's teaching us how to discern in those relationships. When I was learning how to become a pilot, my instructor, we sat in the seat for the first time, and he said, look out the window when we take off. And he said, if you see a plane in the window, through the window, he said, you always want to see a plane that starts that big, and you want to see it start getting that big. You never want to see it start like that and start getting like that. He said, because when it's going like that and getting bigger, it may be a 600-knot closure, and this is not going to be pretty at all. So he said, he taught me, zip plane, zip plane. Look off in the distance, as we should with our relationships. When we learn the skill set, Julie, we can start seeing in advance and observing before they get in our life and make us collateral damage. So by discerning in advance, and we teach through the courses, we have a 3-course series called Give to Be Great, and we teach, what do you do when people are in your life right now? What do you do about them? You know, because when you learn this for the first time, you go, oh boy, I would have liked to have known this a long time ago. But in the meantime, we need to deal with it, right? So we teach people, how do you do that? How do you do these kinds of things so that, from a giving perspective, Giving 101, my business mentor taught me. He said, when you're a giver, people will take advantage of you. Expect it. But he said, here's the part no one ever gets. The second half no one hears or says. He said, when you're a giver, people will take advantage of you. Expect it. But you're never diminished because they did. They're diminished. So when you're a giver, people will take advantage of you, but you're never diminished. They are. And he said, and they'll lose a relationship. They'll lose you. And he said, and here's the other part. View the giving scale as follows. On one side, you have all the parts you can give. Everything. It's a scale. And he said, on the other side is all the things you're going to receive. He said, this scale is never, ever out of balance. It strives for balance. Here's the deal. Do your best every day to get that scale out of balance. Heave so much on that giving side that the rewards will come back. And I can share with you millions and millions of dollars. Earning $1 million was the easiest thing I ever did. And my mentor was right about the hardest thing. You know what the hardest thing was? Believing I was worth it. That was the hardest thing. It wasn't earning the million. It was believing I was worth it. So through these things, and I, again, was very blessed. I had a radio talk show and interviewed over 1,000 millionaires in 2 years. and was able to ask them great questions off the air. I mean, I had my own agenda. My agenda was I wanted to learn
Mm-hmm.
what are the common threads. So I interviewed 1,000 millionaires in 2 years on a radio talk show, and broadcast half over the United States, and it was astonishing to hear so many of them had similar stories, articulated a little different, but the stories were really sort of the same. They all had a time where everything told them to stop. Everything told them to throw in the towel. Their business associates, their friends, their family, their parents, the economy, the political environment. Everything told them to throw in the towel and stop. They all, 100% of them had that story. And they all also had the next part. And what was interesting, and when they talked about the next step, they weirdly used even the same kind of words. They said, I took the next step just to see what else could go wrong. I mean, I thought I had hit everything. Is there anything else that could go wrong? I have a morbid curiosity. Did I miss anything? And if there is, I want to find out what it is, because I don't know if there is. And I think I hit them all. And they said when they did that next step, Julie, it was almost weirdly mystical, they said, on how things began to effortlessly come together almost on their own. Some of them said, even in spite of me. It began to come together, and I could see it. And it was almost like temporary defeat had said, this guy or gal doesn't know when to give up. They don't know when to throw in the towel. I'm going to exit their life, and I'm going to go and screw up someone else's life. Goodbye. And all of a sudden, things start working out. Now, they all had that. Again, verified what my business mentor drilled into me. Not some, every adversity in life carries with it the seeds of equal or greater benefits. Now, it's up for us as a leader to move aside those leaves. That's our part. And then we've got to find those seeds. But here's the funny thing about those. They're always there, and they're always equal to or greater than the adversarial event. Every adversity carries with the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And my business mentor said, when we really understand temporary defeat. And he said, get rid of the F-bomb. Don't say it. Don't say that word failure. He said, because failure is too eternal sounding. He said, when you say it, it sounds too eternal. He said, supplant that with temporary defeat, because you're going to get tackled 1,000 times. And when you get tackled, you're going to stand up. You're going to realize you got a first down. It's a temporary defeat. And you got a first down. You're still in the game. Failure throws you out of the game. Don't get thrown out. So temporary defeat. And through that, the next thing I'm going to say is going to bake some of the noodles of some of your listeners, because they're going to say, this guy is crazy. If he's in Michigan, I'm never going to Michigan if they even think anything like that. Because my mentor said, but if you think about it and you give pause to it, it does sort of make sense. And the more you think about it, the more sense it makes. My mentor said, when you really begin to supplant education for wisdom, and he said, wisdom is knowing what to do and when to do it. He said, when you begin to do that, and that transition, he said, you'll begin to understand that temporary defeat is a blessing, because it has in it the seeds you have needed to get to the next step out. Without those seeds, you would not get there. He said, so when we get to understand that and get our head around what's really happening, here's the part, Julie. You will begin to welcome and embrace temporary defeat, because we'll realize it's exactly what we needed when we move aside those seeds. That's our part. Move aside the leaves, Find those seeds. And my mentor said, you'll be running up the stairs of prosperity so fast when everyone else is landlocked on these other stairs, because they're all saying, I'm afraid. I'm afraid what someone's going to say. I'm afraid what my friends are going to say if I fail. I'm afraid if it doesn't work. And they're coming from this place of fear and self-sabotage. And he said, when you really begin to understand the blessing of of those temporary defeats, he said, you'll welcome them, you'll embrace them, and you will move past them so fast that other people are just going to think, man, that was just like a blur. And I can share with you, these are things that were taught to me. The blessing I had in my life, I can tell you, Julie, I didn't do any of those. All of those are from the people that I was able to just be dumb enough to listen to what they said because they were good mentors. They taught me and I listened.
And listening is extremely powerful. Just being around the right people and listening. Now, I know if I were listening to, everything that you're saying, I would say, but EA, I want to know just a couple of gems. Like these are all great, but like practically, I how do I identify a taker? How do I know I'm a great giver? What are these deeds that I'm looking for?
Great. Great question. Thank you. Because we actually, because we are givers, we have to walk our talk, and we're going to. And I have a vow and an oath that I need to keep fulfilling on a daily basis. So we want to give a couple of these checklists that I referenced absolutely free. We want to give them to your listeners. Use them, download them. And you know what's amazing is when they look at them, I call it the green car theory. And that is, you never realize how many green cars are on the road until when? You're getting ready to buy.
Green car of your own.
You're getting ready to buy one. I was like, man, look at all the green cars. I never saw that. And the reason why is they were always there. Our attention is now focused on the green cars. And the same thing when I look at these checklists, they go, oh, I got that. Oh, boy, that's good. I see. Because at a very granular approach, we're identifying the deeds to observe, and that helps us discern. We say, givers earn 3 times more because givers discern 3 times more. Couple of the checklists they're going to get. I'll give you a couple of those nuggets. The first one they're going to get, first of all, go to our, simply listeners, go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. We are not spammers. I hate that. I joined someone's, like I put my name in something because they had got some download, and I'm getting 10 emails a day from them. So unsubscribe, unsubscribe, right? I mean, so we email once a week. It's a short email, right? And in that email, they're going to receive another tool. We call it the Giver's Toolbox. They're going to receive another tool every week and 1 email a week. It's usually on Thursday mornings. And it's a tool, a relationship tool that they can add into their toolbox in a short, sweet, simple email, non-solicitous, to help them on their road with learning this skill set, right? So when they sign up for the newsletter, they're going to get something right away. Do you want to hear from these people? They have to say yes, because we're not spammers. When they do, minutes later, they're going to get their first checklist, and it's called the 6 arrows that takers shoot at givers. I'll give you a couple of those arrows now.
Okay.
One of the arrows they're going to see is, you will see a taker switch in the course of a conversation from a fact-based, high moral ground conversation into personal attacks. You'll see them switch gears, and you will see them use phrases like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. See, there's the attack. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the information. You don't know what I know about this. You don't know all this stuff. You'll hear, they have to switch from the fact-based, non-emotional, moral high ground into the personal attack. A giver won't do that switch. They'll stay where it is, and they will say, that could very well be true. Could you teach me about that? I'd like to learn about that. See, totally different scenario rather than the attack, right? So That's one of the arrows. The other arrow is a taker will begin and try to feebly transfer guilt of things they have done from the taker onto the giver by saying things like, and we teach these phrases, watch these phrases, watch for these deeds. They will say things like, you made me angry. You made me do this. You did this, right? It's always the personal attack. Now, first of all, the statement's not accurate to begin with. No one can make someone else be angry. They have to allow it to happen. That's number one, right? So the statement's inaccurate to begin with, but those are a couple of things when you see them do that personal attack. Now, a couple days later, they're going to get, and I love this checklist. It's a 2-page checklist called the 25 do's. It's literally on 2 pages, 25 deeds to watch for that people do that will help you on your discerning. One of those is, it's called do the thing to get the thing. Do not the thing, get not the thing, but get something else. In other words, a giver will always be the first one to step up and say, I'll do that thing. I'll do whatever that is. And they're willing to do whatever is required to accomplish whatever needs to get done. Taker will not. They sidestep. They will glom onto someone else's deeds. They will shortcut. And you'll see them doing that. I mean, it's very observable, right? Another one is the ability, and this is very important with a conscious investor thing, one of the actual deeds. So you should use it, download this and give it to some of your clients and help them, right? Delaying gratification to increased returns. So givers are willing to do that. They realize the difference in compensation. We train people that compensation, first of all, is not necessarily money. And also, compensation is the end result of those things that we have put in that big giver scale I talked about before. The rewards we get back are those compensations, right? And we teach compensation, that it's not just necessarily money. And most people don't make a lot of money because they don't understand how compensation really works. And that if you want to increase your returns, be willing to delay your gratification. That's the difference between earning money and collecting money, right? Collecting money is when you get a paycheck on Friday. Earning money means you may not be collecting it yet, but you're earning it. And as I know you share, and forgive me for singing to the choir here, because I'm sure you've forgotten more than will ever know about this, but it's one of the do's. So we teach, be willing to delay gratification, because givers understand that, and they're willing to, and they're willing to contribute. Takers are, pay me first, then I'll do something for you. You know, it's always me, now, give me it all now, and I want it all yesterday, right? And there's this, and you can see them doing it with your own eyes once the green car theory checks in, once you begin to realize and your awareness is there and the skill set starts to be formed. So we love to share those with people, and those are going to be good two things. They go to Givers University, it's plural, giversuniversity.com, sign up for the newsletter right there, and they're on their way. It's no cost, it's a freebie, and we'd love to be able to share these things.
Oh, I love it. We're going to have to start wrapping up, but I want to ask one question before we do it. Specifically is, what if someone's listening to this and more? Now, I have to say, probably not one of my listeners. I have really stellar listeners. So I'm not thinking this, but I'm wondering if someone's listening to this and they're saying, wow, I'm a taker. I can see some taker qualities in me. What's maybe one or two techniques that you guys teach for takers to grow and cultivate the giver mentality?
Great question. And if I can expand on that, because let's say this is the first time they're ever seeing your podcast, right? Or someone listening to it right now is saying, well, you know, this is really good stuff, and I've got a family member that's being a little takerish right now, you know, and they could really, you know, this would be some good stuff for them, right? And I want to have a conversation. I know that they're being takerish. Someone needs to have that conversation with them, but I love them. I care about them. I don't want to hurt their feelings. How do I do that, right? So first thing they could do, Julie, is to share a podcast called The Conscious Investor with them. And it's simple, because all they have to do is simply say, you know what? I heard this really thought-provoking podcast, and it was different. It was a different set of information. Do me a favor, listen to it. Let me know what you think. Because of the power of the third party, right? Because it's not them saying it. You never know. Their mind may open. If they sign up for the newsletter, they'll get the checklist. And within the checklist, Julie, there's an automatic self-assessment part built in. It happens automatically. They look at it and they go, oh boy, I see right there on number 12 of the 25, that's got my name written on it. I need to be able to do something about that. Takers, the great thing, Julie, is takers are not eternally takers. We teach a technique, to your question, that's called the data reset. It's an acronym, DATA. The data reset is, simply put, declare and turn around. Declare and turn around. And we teach people how to do that so that they can move. Because when someone's a taker, they're not a taker eternally. And especially when they start hearing this stuff, now they're a taker by choice. Right? So we teach them as a skill. This is the thing. You can participate in these courses called Give to Be Great. The first course is the giver's mindset, how givers think differently than takers. The second is the giver's lifestyle. We identify the 30 habits that givers have, that you can see them with these habits, and the 30 habits of takers, and we distinguish them. for that skill set. And the last is the Giver's Lifelong Learning, where we get into the 6 virtual prisons that people walk around in that they don't even realize that they're in every day because of their relationships in these taker situations. So we use a very granular, sifted all the way down to where you can no longer say, what do I do? Because there it is. And that's the position we always want to be in from an instructing standpoint as we share with your listeners. So that's how they would do it. Do the data reset. We teach how to do that. And also simply share the conscious investor with others and watch their mind open up. Have a dialogue with them. It's just that simple.
It really is far more simple than people make it. I love it. Oh my goodness. I love you can tell I guarantee my listeners are like, oh my gosh, we've never heard Julie like this quiet ever. This is, but you're giving rich, valuable information, and it's meaty, and it's valuable information. And and you have just such a great way of, carrying the message. So I've no doubt at all that Sam would be just like super, excited for everything that you are doing.
Thank you.
So we know we want people to go to giversuniversity.com. Is there any place that's the number one spot you want them to go?
Go there, and from that, they'll hear about everything else. And again, it's one weekly newsletter, usually Thursday morning. And there's usually a couple. We have a clip that we put out every week that's about 2 minutes long. That's called Discern. It's the name of it. And there's a 2-minute clip. This past week the clip was, "Are you flying massively or flying minuscule?" And it's a discernment of where our mind is and where our thought is. And these are like 2-minute clips, and those are usually in there. And then there's like a verbal version of what the clip is, and sort of let people know what we're doing, kind of thing. So it's not a lengthy, it's not a pitchy thing. We genuinely every week want to give them one tool they can put in their relationship toolbox, because relationships, the skills today being taught are so innocuous that they're really, really genuinely not into the granular, what should I be doing? And there's a way of doing this by not judging the person, because we don't judge people. We don't label people, but by looking at their deeds. And that's where you really decide, do I want those deeds in my life? And we all want to form our giver community. I got to share one thing with you because I love this. My next go around with the podcast, I'm so excited about this information because I've seen it so much. We're going to distinguish the difference between giver communities and taker communities, because everyone today is join my community, and oh boy, are we going to have fun with that one? How so many of these communities are not. They just call it what it is. It's a customer hit list. It's a prospecting list. It's not a community. And because in a community, you earn money with someone, you don't earn money off from them. And there's a big difference. So we're going to go through the 12 steps of how to form your own giver community of the right kind of people around you that you're going to have these great relationships with, that are going to give you the happiness and the predictable, massive greatness that you want in your life by having just the right people around you. So I got to tell you, I'm truly excited about that, because there's so many great stories, and some of them I can like just want to get them out there so people could say, oh, that's so true. Those aren't communities, they're customer lists. And I'm not, just tell me I'm joining your customer list. I got no problem, but don't say I'm in your community. It's ridiculous. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that. And I really look forward to it. Julie, you are awesome. Thank you so much. And I hope all of your listeners genuinely share this podcast. Share it with people. People need help with their investments today. We teach that in the course. We call it the power of 3. 10% for tithing and charity, 10% for savings and investments, and 10% for research, for your personal research and development or self-improvement. So we actually teach, and we're great advocates of, on a systemic basis, make sure you're paying yourself first and with your investments. Oh, yeah. And you are awesome, Julie. Thank you so much. And I'm glad that, you're, who was it? It was, Lindsay. Yeah, Lindsay. That she reached out to us and connected us together. How awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. You're awesome. If you watch this, we love you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And to all the awesome listeners out there, thank you so much. I know that you've enjoyed this episode. I'm like completely confident in that. So, if you are thinking of somebody that is a taker, and you're identifying that, share the episode. Sharing is caring. It's just a matter of getting a message out so you can be an ambassador. And until next time, please live big, love bigger. What's the big deal about investing in apartments? Why is it better than investing in a slew of single-family homes? I've compiled a lot of information on why investing in multifamily, also known as apartments, will help you reach your investment goals. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download the Why Invest in Multifamily guide today.